Hello, I'm Marites Vitug, and this is Worldview. We take a look at global, regional, and national affairs in conversations with newsmakers, officials, and analysts. With me is Bea Cupin, our senior reporter covering security and foreign affairs.
Hi, Marites.
We are here at the Department of Foreign Affairs. Joining us is Foreign Affairs Secretary Maria Theresa Lazaro. We will be talking about the Philippines' chairmanship of the ASEAN, which starts next year, and a host of issues from relations with China, the US, Europe, and Taiwan. Welcome to the show, Secretary Lazaro.
Thank you very much, Marites and Bea.
It's our pleasure to be here. Let's start with the hottest issue. Well, is it hot for everyone? ASEAN. Next year, we will be chair of ASEAN.
Yes.
And what do you expect from the Philippines' role as leader of ASEAN in determining the future of the South China Sea?
Well, first of all, as the chair of ASEAN in 2026, this chairship only comes after 10 years. Mm-hmm. But, we took over because Myanmar was not able, or it's mentioned that they are not able to be the chair for 2026, and therefore we have taken over. And as such, this is a view that there can be some kind of we can play the field on the many aspects of geopolitical issues that are happening not only within the region but the whole world, because we have dialogue partners who is very much part of the conversation within ASEAN. This is something that we are looking forward to. In fact, the Philippines is very prepared. We have already have our priorities set up still a few months ago, but I'm just not in the position to give you the details of that because we are awaiting. It's still Malaysia who is technically and legally the chair until the end of the year. We just want to finish the term of Malaysia. And also, on our part, the Philippines, President Marcos will launch the chairship sometime in the first half of November. Thereafter, I will talk to the diplomatic corps. I will invite media and tell the details of the priorities, the theme, and many other aspects of the 2026 chairship.
Ma'am, since you can't talk to us yet about the priorities and the themes,
right.
but what are the things you think that naturally the Philippines will champion as chairperson of ASEAN?
There are three basic issues that we think will really permeate or will dominate the issues during the chairship. There are three. One is security, security issues, peace and security issues. Second, maritime cooperation. And the third one is climate change. So these issues are really cross-cutting, and it enters the three pillars of ASEAN: political security, economic, as well as the social-cultural.
Ma'am, talking about maritime cooperation
Yes.
and maritime security as well, there's been a lot of discussions about the aspiration for COC negotiations to conclude by the time the Philippines chairs the ASEAN. Could you explain to us, saan galing po yung optimism or pagiging hopeful that negotiate? I mean, it's been decades, right?
I want to go back to the 2002 declaration, the DOC. That was a very difficult one, but again, it took also, if I recall, 20 years. But we were able to come up with that declaration, though it's not binding. However, now it is a code of conduct, and it is the view of the Philippines that it should be binding.
Okay.
And therefore, it's taking a little bit more time. I like the word that you use, it's aspirational. We would like, it is of course the view, the Philippines and many other, the ASEAN member states, and I would think also China, that this is a document that should be, that should come out by 2026. I also want to review in 2023, there was a decision made by the foreign ministers that it's taking a long time, you should finish this document, this code of conduct by 3 years thereafter, and that is in 2026, which falls into our chairship. So Malaysia did everything. There was a series of technical working groups as well as senior officials meetings. There will be one, I think this November, the last one under Malaysian chairship that will be held in Beijing. Now, assuming what has been discussed, although a number of provisions have already been finalized, the milestones issues have been discussed. Some definition of terms have also been discussed, but there's still a need to finish really the whole process. So during our chairship, although we have not yet talked to our ASEAN member states on this, but we intend to convene the joint working groups and the other meetings just to continue, because we're almost there. It's just that probably it lack time and many other issues to be, some other specific issues to be finalized.
Ma'am, so you're the it's aspirational, but some of the apprehensions from different sectors, right, is that, okay, we might have a COC, but it might not have teeth. I guess the definition of teeth is different depending on who you talk to. So how does Manila intend to avoid that? Kasi sayang naman, right? Decades of negotiations and then...
My view is that for so many years, ASEAN member states have been focusing on this, have been dwelling on this. And the fact that we have been meeting so many times, both virtual and face-to-face, is already a testament that there is a keen interest of everybody in ASEAN and China to have this code of conduct. Now, when you said that you're talking about teeth, well, it is for us now to provide the implementation. Once we have finished this document, there is already a political commitment coming from all of us in China. So that is how I see things. Of course, there will be a big job still ahead of us, but we'll see. We cannot speculate what will happen in this Beijing meeting chaired by Malaysia.
Again, ito tuhog, ma'am, yung three pillars of the Philippines when it comes to ASEAN. No? By next year, BBNJ will come into force. How will this figure into discussions of the South China Sea, the Philippines' blue economy, goals and aspirations again? And to zoom out further, sir, how do we see this treaty integrating into maybe the COC discussions towards the end, and in general discussions on maritime issues in ASEAN?
Well, it may or may not, because some of the other ASEAN member countries have not yet signed, more so ratified the treaty. So I think we're only I don't know how many, but I think we're 6 or 7 right now who have ratified and given to the United Nations. In fact, we're the 65th. We were hoping to be the 60th, so that will be the entry point. I mean, to enter into force. Anyway, to your question, so there are other issues, but I think the code of conduct is already focused on certain issues. The milestones, if I can recall, it's whether it's legally binding. The second is the scope. The third is the link between the DOC and the COC, and the fourth one are some definition of terms.
Ma'am, on our ASEAN friends, it has always been said that they are the least supportive of the Philippines in our stand when we stand up to China, and there have been a lot of discussion on this. How does the DFA address this? And are the DFA embassies, our embassies in various ASEAN capitals, taking this up with their counterparts?
Let me tell you this. In fact, you said that ASEAN member states have not really fully agreed, or probably. Well, this is the situation actually. Some ASEAN member states may not be very vocal, but to a certain extent they agree with the provisions of the arbitral award. Secondly, in fact, we have learned that some are using this with their bilateral issues and situations, but perhaps due to for certain reasons that only it's their national interest, they have not been very vocal about it. But what is important for us is that there are so many countries, like-minded countries, have supported us, and you've seen this in daily occurrences, that they have given us this how important, how valuable this 2016 arbitral award. To your question of our embassies are doing everything in their capacity to explain. The arbitral award is just simply giving out the provisions, of course, the features that has been discussed in the decision, and it is basically again the provisions of UNCLOS that are there.
So it's like a quiet support from some of the ASEAN countries for the Philippines.
I would really, I can describe it that way, but there was even, it's not totally that they do not discuss the issues of the South China Sea. I think it was in several years back, there were resolutions that came out on the level of the foreign ministers on the South China Sea.
And maybe just a related question. The foreign magazines recently described again the Philippines as an outlier in ASEAN, and that we lack friends among ASEAN countries, and we rely on non-Asian partners, particularly the US, more than any of our neighbors. What's your response to this, or what are your thoughts about this perception?
That's a very good word, perception. It is maybe their perception that we are an outlier. Definitely not. We have proven time and again the importance of the rule of law. The 2016 Arbitral Award is a testament that we believe and we agree on the rule of law. And it's basically UNCLOS. A number of them have signed to this very important agreement, or global agreement. So, as you said, there may not be very vocal, but the provisions, the essence, the very essence of the arbitral award, which is actually just coming from UNCLOS, at the same time that the issue of that everything should be discussed peacefully through diplomatic dialogue, are all embodied in the decision in the 2016 Arbitral Award.
Moving on to our neighbor up north, ma'am, how would you describe currently Philippine-China ties?
I could describe it in two ways. First is that when it comes to trade, it's really robust. I think trade relations, I don't have the statistics with me, but we have very good trade relations, although investment may be a little bit low. And of course, the other side of it is our dispute in the South China Sea. Trade as well as people-to-people cooperation. The Filipino-Chinese community is a very strong sector of Philippine society. And the fact is that, just to inform you, that by November 1, we will be issuing e-visas to Chinese nationals. So it runs this way. Parallel to that is, of course, what is happening in our waters. And you know very well that I give credit to our defense and as well as security agencies who's also doing their part in also protecting our sovereign rights and jurisdiction. And so that's how I can describe the situation, the position right now. Plus the fact in the issue of the South China Sea, our security agencies, as I mentioned, has been doing their part. We, the Department of Foreign Affairs, have been doing our part too. We have had mechanisms, which you're quite aware, the bilateral consultative mechanism of the South China Sea. Just about a few months ago, we had the consular meeting in I think it was in Beijing. And so these are mechanisms that are working, that are moving. Hopefully we'll have another bilateral, another BCM. We're just looking at the possible dates.
Yeah, speaking of the BCM, you used to lead those BCM.
Yes,
It was you who negotiated the terms for the now peaceful situation in Ayungin Shoal. So for the next BCM, although you can't say when, will other features be included like Scarborough Shoal, which is becoming a contentious area?
We cannot dismiss that. It is something that may be a possibility and subject to discussions. But you're correct, right now, that provisional arrangement is only for the second Thomas Shoal or Ayungin Shoal. But I cannot speculate, but there is a possibility that we may hopefully discuss other features.
Because Scarborough Shoal has been in the news because of China's announcement that it would build a nature reserve. So, and then Justice Antonio Carpios gave compelling historical facts and then urged the DFA to lead an information campaign on this. So, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, on the Scarborough Shoal, what they did was an immediate reaction. What China did by announcing that area as some kind of haven,
Nature reserve,
was an immediate reaction from the Department of Foreign Affairs to protest, because Scarborough Shoal is an integral part of Philippine territory. So now we have given a number of explanations on the situation. Why, as requested also by Justice Carpio, we have been giving some information on this. I think our spokesperson has done that, and in our embassies, in the foreign service posts all over the world, they have been given instructions. But of course, nobody doubted, amongst us, that the Scarborough Shoal is very much part of Philippine territory. But again, we reiterate, perhaps you're giving me another idea. We have to again disseminate said information.
But I'm curious now, because it's very distinct, right? We have the trade ties, which you describe as robust, and then you have obviously the issues in the South China Sea. Parang when we talk to the Chinese, are these separate things altogether? Don't they get mixed up together at one point? Na parang, kumbaga, we talk trade, but in the waters, we know water canon ng yung Philippines.
Hindi naman, because the BCM is just on the South China Sea.
Okay.
There is another aspect, which is also the meeting on we call it FMC, Foreign Ministry Consultations, and hopefully it will be convened. That includes, and others, but South China Sea is a different mechanism by itself.
Speaking of another very important partner of the Philippines, how do we approach dealing with the United States these days? Kasi obviously a treaty ally, but a lot of analysts, observers have pointed out they can be unpredictable. That's their word. Sometimes the word transactional has been thrown around. So how does the Philippines approach dealing with our treaty ally at this point?
Well, the United States for many years have proven itself to be supportive and have been a good friend of the Philippines. The words of transactional, of course, is a certain, opinion of certain people. But as far as the Philippine government is concerned, in terms of many aspects, from political to economic to socio-cultural, there had been the United States has been a friend and an ally. That is something that it is known to everyone in the Philippine government, as well as to the local constituents.
However, ma'am, under Trump, as we all know, democracy is under attack. And it used to be, we used to look up to the U.S. as the beacon of democracy. So does this affect our relations with them? Because we're supposed to be promoting democratic values as well.
Well, probably the response is on certain aspects. President Trump is still the leader of the United States, and he has been, let me just cite certain examples on defense cooperation. There has been, I defer this to our Defense Department. You can ask them how much support the United States has given them, as well as our law enforcement officials, particularly the Philippine Coast Guard, in terms of education. Just about, I guess, a few weeks ago, there has been a substantial amount of money given to health. So it may be that, of course, the pronouncements of President Trump may have some effect on on perceptions of certain people, but on a government-to-government basis, it's still very strong and continues to be strong.
It's also been said that the U.S. is like in retreat, so it's losing its leadership role in the world as we knew it. So do you think Europe and Canada can step up to fill in this vacuum?
Well, I'll cite you. Well, generally, that is where the aspect of multilateralism, and that was my statement in the United Nations General Assembly. Even if one country among the 193 countries leave, it is very important that multilateralism works because we have to work together. So, just talk about the, let's say, in the conference of parties on issues of the climate change, they may not be as robust as they were before in funding climate change projects, but EU and many other countries are continuing the work. In fact, EU is stronger now when it comes to climate change issues. In the World Trade Organization, I think it's the same thing. So there is what kicks in, multilateralism, the convergence of many other countries to work together. We just do not get aid. We just do not get something. We also give something, and that's what makes multilateralism strong.
Can we turn to our neighbor?
Sure.
Taiwan.
Whose neighbor? Okay. We have so many neighbors.
Up north as
okay.
well.
Taiwan,
very,
yes.
very small, not a really small country, but it's a sensitive issue.
Strategic.
And it has been described by some as an affair that the Philippines likes to hide. Do you think that that is an apt comparison? And how do we deal with Taiwan? I know that you've said we have a one China policy, but we have also very robust trading relations with Taiwan.
Well, if we go back to 1975, there was a joint communique signed by then the father of the president, Ferdinand Marcos Sr., and at that time the leader of China. And it was very specific in that joint communique that when it comes to trade issues, it will continue. It will have to prosper by itself, but there will be certain people that cannot visit Taiwan: president, vice president, secretary of foreign affairs, secretary of national defense. Now this is evolving because also Philippines needs investments. So. In fact, what is happening right now is when it comes to meetings on trade and investment, there's no, but affair cannot be hidden. It's there. It's obvious. The DTI and CPEA Go has been very vocal on the trade and investment aspects. But if it is something that may be political, then as I mentioned in my Senate hearings, the DFA is the foreign affairs is the vanguard of the one China policy. We just have to balance and manage this in accordance with those things that we have signed in the past and which geopolitics dictate.
So I'm guessing, ma'am, you can't tell us on record kung pumunta ba talaga dito yung foreign minister ng Taiwan.
That is, even in the Senate,
No, I'm just kidding, ma'am. You mentioned this earlier, no? You represented the Philippines before the UN recently lang during high-level week.
Yes.
And just as the UN turns 80, a very milestone,
auspicious.
but also it's a very difficult time for multilateralism. Now, you mentioned earlier, you made a case for why it's important, but what sort of role do you think multilateralism should and will be playing, given all these, so many things happening around the world, right? Wars, disruptions to the order that we're used to.
I think let's look into just give specific examples on probably on the issue of the Middle East. If you recall, in the past, some countries in Europe were not really. They have a very separate view, and they do not recognize Palestine. And as it progressed, then things have changed. Things are shifting. These are probably some of the results of multilateralism. It's really giving. It's not easy. It's unlike bilateral. It's just one-on-one. Regional, probably we're 10, but of course this is a good number of countries with very different affiliations and backgrounds. But in the end, logic, rule of law will prevail and can prevail. I remember very well probably one of the most important aspects of that the UN was able to achieve was apartheid. I mean, think about it. Things have changed. Now this one, again, there's a shifting, there's a paradigm shift on many aspects, and we just have to trust the United Nations. I don't know, who do we trust if there is no United Nations? It may be a talk shop, it may be, but it works, and it has been working for the past 80 years.
We hope in thee for us. There's been not just criticism, but the U.S. has been scaling down its support of the UN. How will that affect the body and ultimately the Philippines, right? Because we do engage a lot with different UN agencies as well.
As I said, some countries will always hope to provide the funding that is missing. And some is just scaling down, but continuing the work, continuing the projects. Here alone, I think we just signed so many exchange of notes on many aspects, from agriculture to environment. It continues because there is a need for it, and some countries that have some developed countries have continuously think that we should be continuing the work.
The Philippines has been campaigning to become a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. Do we have a strong chance, and why is it so important for us to sit there?
I think that it is important because in the Security Council, one will be is the fulcrum of power, and at the same time, there's a possibility that you can contribute and move things on a global basis. And this is how we think that's why this non-permanent membership in the Security Council is important, is because they have also certain things to offer. Like our BARM, it may not be perfect, but this is an issue that we can project in terms of peace and security. There may be other aspects that can be contributed to the Security Council, and also, you see, it depends really on the agenda and what will happen again the next 2 years. Now, your question, if we are. Did you ask if we are going?
Do we have a strong chance?
Do we have a strong?
Are you confident that we will be able to?
It's very hard to be very confident. So I would just say that we have a good chance. Okay, a reasonably good chance.
Now we turn to Europe, because we've had blooming or maybe good relations with many countries there.
Yes.
And during the Shangri-La dialogue, the French President Macron wooed Southeast Asian countries, saying that we should join, or France and the rest of Europe, in a coalition of independence rather than choose between the two giants, US or China. What do you think about this proposal? I mean, is it worth pursuing? Are Southeast Asian countries listening to this?
Well, I think we, as well as the Southeast, as well as ASEAN, are sort of thinking on this situation. I think that even President Macron himself has also some other challenges that he is facing.
Of course, domestically, yes.
Domestic as well as some aspects within the EU and Europe. So we'll see. It's a work in progress.
But how would you describe now our relations with Europe since the first visit in 60 years of an European Commission president happened in 2023? So have things moved on, and how will you describe our relations now with Europe?
I can only say that it is an uptick trend. It is really going up. Since we had this, I'm trying to get this, the PCA, it's really a comprehensive partnership with the EU. We have almost annual meetings on governance, on maritime, on trade, on security. In fact, one of the most important events that has happened is something happening in Cebu right now. I think this is the 4th round of the negotiations of the Philippine-EU FTA. We're now in Cebu. Or is it finished already? I don't know. But I know they started. They started yesterday, I think. So having an FTA, that was something very difficult a few years back.
Right.
But now I think they have recognized us. This is not this is not an ASEAN FTA. This is Philippine-EU free trade agreement, and we're hoping that we can have this. FTA hopefully before, sometime early 2026. Now there's even a GSP plus. So you see, it's on the trade aspect. It's working together. Since we don't have the FTA yet, the GSP is still there, and GSP plus for I think the next it's a certain number of years, 3 years or 4 years. And then what happened in the European Parliament? They deleted us from the FATF. What's FATF?
That's the gray list.
That gray list. Yes. These are the things that are that have been happening in terms of funding. That is something that there's a lot of funding on renewable energy, on environment. Of course, on the important things that EU has focused on.
Ma'am, speaking of negotiations, it's almost hard to keep track with the defense negotiations that the Defense Department is holding. Kasi right after Canada and New Zealand, there's France, and recently Secretary Chodoro announced na basically they expect to be given the green light also for negotiations with the United Kingdom. When we spoke to him, he emphasized, or he framed the importance of it as the Philippines talking to members of NATO, right? So how do you see the future of defense, people-to-people ties as well between NATO members, the EU, and the Philippines?
Well, I think, again, it's very good in that sense. I think the Secretary of National Defense has his own vision of how things are, but as far as bilateral aspects is concerned, it's always, as I use the word again, an uptick trend with UK, even though it's not part of the EU. We have signed a lot of this. They have so many names in terms of the partnership. Some are enhanced, some are comprehensive, but it's the whole gamut of description. But everything is really going towards a very good direction, politically, economically, and socioculturally.
Are we eyeing strategic partnerships with EU member states? Because
there is a certain, I'm trying to recall UK. We just signed something. I just cannot recall
leading towards a possible strategic.
It is almost a strategic partnership, but with a different name.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, ma'am, let's
Yes.
go internal
Yes.
and look at maybe how you've been running DFA. But before that, you gave an interview, a very interesting one with Deutsche Welle when you were in the UN
Yes.
in New York. And you talked about the corruption scandal happening now. Does this affect international perception of the Philippines and your work as the topmost diplomat? And what do you think should government do about this unprecedented scandal?
The question first, does it affect my work?
Yes, yes.
Answer is no. In the sense that, as I've told you, I just had, how do you say this, exchanges of notes on loans and grants. For me, that's an indication that it doesn't affect how they see the Philippines. And with various countries, visitors coming in, there are quite a number of visitors. In fact, after my meeting, I had 35 meetings, bilateral meetings in New York. To just imagine how tiring it would be. But most of them would like to have political consultations. In fact, there's a number of political consultations. We're trying to finish everything before the end of the year because we want to concentrate on the ASEAN chairship. Aside from political consultations, of course, there are still a number of visitors, state visitors who wants to go. There may be a lot in 2026. So that for me is how I see things and how they see us. Of course, they may have some private views, but to answer your question, how do you think I would? Well, I'm just like any Filipino. We're trying to have project also a good governance, but I can only see convictions, certain convictions that will sort of pacify the Filipino people on this issue of widespread corruption. And I am confident that our agencies, our concerned government agencies will be doing their part.
So you feel strongly about this issue as well because business groups, civil society groups, the church have all spoken up.
Well, it is, and particularly how, of course, the local constituency feel, the Filipino people. Of course, our OFWs are also affected one way or the other. But as I go back to how government works, there has been no change so far.
Last two questions.
Yes.
You come in leading the DFA midway point, more or less, and some change into the Marcos administration. So what role do you see yourself playing in the next 2.5 years? Bukod sa, obviously, the ASEAN chairmanship, right? And what goals have you set for yourself and as well as the department?
Well, I can only say that the architect of foreign policy is the president. So we will be continuing his policies and his views on foreign policy. What I would just like to see is the Department of Foreign Affairs to be stronger, to be... this is an institution I've been for more than 40 years. So this is the only institution I have learned to live and to love, perhaps. So making it stronger, making it distinct and probably play a big role in national development is probably the only thing that I can think of right now.
For the final question,
Sure.
Secretary, I'm sure you've been asked this, but how would you want to be remembered? You're just starting your term, but we'd like to know, what do you want to leave behind?
Well, I guess that I just want to be remembered as a foreign secretary that has given, has given the Department of Foreign Affairs of what it was all about, a primus inter pares, the first among equals. And we've always been that, even in protocol. DFA is always the first among equals. And I just want to give that notion that the DFA, with our men and women here, with their work in the foreign service posts, can retain that position and can maintain that position, that we are indeed the first among equals.
On that high note, we end this interview. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Secretary, for giving us time. Thank you, Bea, for joining me in this interview.
Thank you, Marites, and thank you too for watching. For more on everything we just talked about here and all of Rappler's coverage, please download our app. You can scan the QR codes that are on your screen right now.
That's it for today's show. Thank you to our viewers. This has been Worldview with Marites Vitug. Till next time.